Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to show you how to make a really delicious French dessert known as a Far Breton. Now my husband says it much better, and every time I hear him say it, I try to say it like he does, but it doesn't come out that way.
Un Far Breton.
Much better. So anything that's labeled Breton basically means from the region of Brittany, or Bretagne, as they would say. And again, I can't even pronounce that. That is another hard French word for me to pronounce, but my husband says it much better.
Bretagne.
Oh, I'm just stuck with my American accent. What can I do? Anyway, don't let that affect the quality of the dessert because it is super delicious and so easy to make. Now, apparently the legend of this dessert is that it was created by sailors because Brittany is on the coast and the sailors were off on a big sea voyage and they didn't have much to eat except for some basic provisions: eggs, milk, flour, and a little bit of leftover prunes. They added some rum to the dessert to make it last longer, and there you have it, Far Breton. And I'm also told that far comes from the original Breton word F-A-R-L, which means batter. So essentially, it's the batter from Breton. The texture is somewhere between a flan and a clafoutis. And it's super delicious, and it's something you don't typically see here in the States when you go to a French bakery. It's something you really have to try in France. That's why it's so much more fun to make it at home. Let me show you how to do it. The first thing you want to do is get your prunes soaking in the rum. Now, if you don't drink, you could omit the rum and use a 1/4 cup of warm water plus a tablespoon of vanilla extract. That will at least give you some flavor. Now, do make sure you get the whole pitted prunes because they do sell them with the pits in them, and you want to make sure that you don't have any pits. I just found them at my local grocery store, Sun-Maid brand, right by the raisins. Not sponsored, just the brand I used. Then I'm using a 1/4 cup of dark Myers rum, and I am just going to pour it all over the prunes here. And you do want to make sure that you give them a good pressing so that everything is being soaked. And they need to sit like this at room temperature for 1 hour, I know. But you can do some other things around the house, and then when they have about 15 minutes left, start to make the recipe. So I am using a 9x12 lasagna pan. That's why it's so deep. Anything in these general dimensions, 8x12, 9x10, anything like that will work. You just want it deep enough to hold the amount of batter that we're gonna use. It also helps to have something like this that's ceramic. So you don't wanna use anything that's like metal or cast iron because it gets too hot and then it starts to affect the texture of the custard. All right, then we are gonna use a little bit of baking spray. You could also use butter. A lot of the traditional recipes call for butter, but I use the baking spray because the eggs are so sticky that this way you're assured it'll just pop right out. And then go ahead and brush it with a pastry brush just to make sure that baking spray is all distributed. Then I have some prunes that have been sitting here for an hour. I planned ahead because I knew you were coming. And then just distribute the prunes evenly along the bottom. If you don't like prunes, you could also use raisins. That's another traditional way to go. I've heard of other people using apricots, which could be good. Or I've also seen it just plain without the fruit. So that's also really good. You can leave the prunes out altogether, but don't leave out the rum because that's really good. Unless you don't drink, then do the vanilla extract. Most of our 1/4 cup of rum has been soaked up by the prunes, which is what we want. But there is about another 2 tablespoons left in my container here. So don't throw that away. We are going to add this to our batter once it's already mixed, just to give it some additional flavor. All right, now we are going to add 6 eggs to a large bowl. Then we are gonna add a 1.25 cups of just white granulated sugar. And if you want all the metric measurements, they're in the description, or you can head to my blog. Now here is the weird part. Adding the flour with this mixture and mixing it all together. Now, when I looked at some of these old traditional Far Breton recipes, a lot of them do that technique. A lot of the modern recipes that are being posted today don't do that technique, and they throw everything in the blender and whirl it up. But I have learned that this technique does pay off, and I'll show you at the end of the episode why. You have to wait to see because it is quite dramatic, but it needs to be baked first to actually see the difference. All right, so in it goes. 1 2/3 cup of all-purpose flour and a good pinch of salt. Then you are just gonna whisk this up until we get a nice paste. It's like the weirdest concoction. As you're mixing it, you think this isn't gonna work. It almost looks like a science experiment, like my kids would have done when they were little in the kitchen wanting to play around. But just keep whisking it and it will come together. I promise. There, okay, and then you will get a nice smooth pale yellow mixture that should look like this. It is sticky and pasty, but not to worry, it'll thin out when we add the warm milk. Then I have 4 cups of milk that I have been warming on the cooktop, and now we are just going to add the milk a ladleful at a time, just so that you don't scramble these eggs. So you just want to temper them a little bit, like that. And as you're doing that, you'll see it will lighten this mixture. And then we're just gonna repeat this process until all of your milk is used up. Oh, and by the way, be sure to add back in that rum. I forgot to add it, but don't you forget. Just pop it in as soon as you're done with the milk. There, then you'll have a really nice thin batter that is ready for the casserole dish. Then you are gonna carefully pour your batter into your casserole dish on top of your prunes. There, you can see it's a lot of batter, so you do want to make sure you have a casserole dish that's pretty deep. Then we are going to bake this at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about 1 hour. There, and when it comes out of the oven, it'll look like this. It'll be all puffed up, golden brown, and it will fill your kitchen with the most delicious aroma. It kind of looks like a baked lasagna. You do want to let it cool down for 30 to 40 minutes, and then you can pop it in the refrigerator. A minimum, I would say 4 to 5 hours, but overnight is even better. And then after it's been refrigerating all night, it'll look like this. The custard sinks down, it gets all like beautiful and undulated, and it is just perfectly ready to be sliced into. Okay, now here is the teachable moment that I wanted to show you what happens if you do the technique differently. So this is what we get when we take the eggs, the sugar, and the flour, and we beat it all together and then add the warm milk. This one I made with the same exact recipe, except I did the flour at the very end because it seemed like such a strange thing to whip that flour with the eggs. And look at the difference. Now you can tell it didn't taste bad. We just about devoured 3/4 of it, but it is a completely different texture. This one is a lot more flat. I did bake it at a slightly higher temperature. I went 425 just to see if I could get that kind of blackened caramelized texture that you see a lot in France. But look at the top and how it just doesn't look as great as this does. So that goes to show you, stick with the old methods. Grandma knew best. Okay, let's cut into it. So the traditional way is just to cut it into squares. My husband will eat this for breakfast. I do remember reading that that was a traditional way to eat it. We typically have it for dessert in the summertime because it's a great chilled dessert, but truth be told, it's good anytime. All right, there. You can see you've got the beautiful flan custard, those delicious prunes that have been soaked in the rum, and that additional rum throughout just gives it such great flavor. And what's pretty about the sides is it gives you almost like a little crust to the dessert, which I think looks really lovely when you place it on the plate. All right, let's have a taste, shall we? See how firm it gets when you refrigerate it? You could refrigerate this just a few hours to get a softer texture, but there's something about the really chilled texture that is so good. All right, let's see. It's like this really comforting, custardy, sweet but not too sweet dessert that's super easy. It's a conversation piece because you probably aren't serving this up in the States and your guests will want to know all about it. And now you know the story. All right, you guys, I hope you give this one a try and let me know what you think. If you would like to be the first to have my videos appear in your inbox when they post, subscribe to my newsletter. The link is below. All right, you guys, I'll see you back here next time. Until then, bye.